24 days, 20 hours, 29 minutes, and 49 seconds till Tennessee Titans are maybe drafting Cam Ward in this 2025 NFL Draft. Will Anderson, Jason Teeter, and myself, Jack Kemler, here for Roll the Tape, a new Sunday, a new episode today. We're going over the running backs and the tight ends today. We got 9 running backs for you and 6 tight ends. We'll start at the backside of the tight ends, 6 through 4, and we're going to Will first. Gunnar Helm from Texas.
Gunnar Helm from Texas, one of the big boys in this year's tight end class, senior, 6'5", 241 out of Inglewood, Colorado. Some of his strengths is that he doesn't run slow routes. For a tight end, especially of his size, 6'5", 241, he's not a slow guy. He's not necessarily blazing speed, but he's not slowing down in his routes. He gets back to his eyes quickly when he releases, which I appreciate, especially as a quarterback. You want your guy looking at you no matter what. So Gunnar Helm getting those eyes back, I really appreciate. And I think he's one of the best, if not the best, blocking tight ends in this draft class. That's not to say he's a great blocker, because there's not a lot of tight ends in this class that are great blockers, but just strictly the size.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, just his base, his size, everything about him makes him a decent blocker, but again, not a great blocker. He does have some bad hands. He gets his hands outside a lot, not what we want to see. And he was never the premier receiving option at Texas, so if you're not great at blocking, you have to be great at receiving, and we never really saw that at Texas with guys like Isaiah Bond, guys like that, Matthew Golden, so... And he's not all that fast. Again, he's a tight end, but he's fast, but not super fast. I would say somewhere late to day 2 or early day 3 for a draft grade. And a team fit would be a team that wants a tight end 2 with upside to become a tight end 1 later when he develops a better blocking package. So somewhere around there is I think where Gunnar Helm will end up going.
Well, and yeah, Gunnar Helm, when you look at it, he's 231. He needs to put a little weight on, and a lot of these guys we're going to be talking about today need to put a little weight on. At the top of the class, we'll talk about it. It's a little better, but especially with a few guys I'm about to talk about later on. You look at Gunnar Helm, and Gunnar Helm has the potential to be a stud.
He does.
He has the potential to be a stud. But size-wise, 6'5" is good. That's a good frame. He has great reach, great catch radius. But 231's scary, especially when you're going up against DNs in the NFL north close to 300 pounds, where you have guys who are just long, lengthy demons and can easily pitchfork a guy like that. And so, yeah, I don't know. Gunnar Helm's kind of like, I like him, but I like him as like a late kind of like throw the dart at the board and hope to see if it sticks.
Absolutely.
So that was that's the start of our top 6 with Gunnar Helm at number 6. We're going to skip over to 4 so we can get Jason in before me. It's a kid from LSU.
Yes. Well, we got Mason Taylor here, son of Hall of Famer Jason Taylor. Okay. Absolute dog when he played for the Dolphins. One of my favorite defensive players growing up. But no, Mason Taylor, he's a good guy. He's a great player. He's 6'4", 250, needs to fill out the frame just like Gunnar Helm did. Needs to fill out the frame. I think I'm going to kind of start with his negatives first. He exposes his chest when he's blocking, and that's scary because then a defensive end can get a hold of you and doesn't look good on film. He needs to improve his strength. And then really he wasn't really utilized in the LSU offense like we could see. His green flags is he's fast as can be. 4.5 speed in the 40. Absolute animal when he's out there. Like, he's fast, right? Yeah. At his size, he's an absolute beast for speed-wise. But we need to see him get utilized in offense that can actually use a tight end. And he also has really reliable hands. Only one drop. He's fluid when he comes through his routes. I have him as more of a kind of a day. I can see him in the 3rd round. I can see him as a 3rd-round starter. And I kind of look at him in kind of like a little Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft type-esque.
Yeah, I like that he weighs more than Gunnar Helm, especially the speed aspect. But the thing that scares me is he doesn't have more than 50 receptions in a year.
Yes.
He has 500 yards pretty much every single year, so he's not really a premier receiver. But then, like you mentioned, he's really prone to exposing his chest, so he's not an amazing blocker. So you got to put one thing that's really good above the other, and I don't think he has either of those.
Well, and the problem is he wasn't just utilizing the LSU offense. I think that's going to kill his stock. Because if he gets in the right offense, if you think of the way the Lions use a tight end, he could play really well in that sort of system where a tight end is used really well within in-cutting routes of 10 yards or little post routes of 15. Or, you know what I'm saying? Something that has more. But if you look at LSU, it's more of a spread. Let's get our balls to receivers.
It's like Kyron Lacy.
Exactly. So there wasn't really utilized, and he has the potential. He has the tape to show that he could be a stud. He just has things that he has to define.
And especially with the tight ends we'll talk about here in a second, Jack, they're so dependent for their teams tight end wise. You think about Tyler Warren, you think about Harold Fannin. We'll get to them, but comparing a guy like Mason Taylor or Gunnar
Yeah.
Helm. It's interesting to see the contrast in those two compared to the rest of the field.
Definitely, and maybe a guy like here too.
Yeah.
Elijah Arroyo from Miami at number 5 for us. Junior, 6'5", 250. Very savvy and manipulative route runner, creating massive separation. Has unreal athleticism and vertical to keep him steps ahead of his defenders. Has the height and frame to be a starter in the NFL. Stretches the field vertically with ease. And really is a threat in the red zone with frame and catch radius, which a lot of teams in the NFL draft are gonna love. We had an episode early on in this NFL draft season. We were talking about the senior day. I don't know if you guys remember. Arroyo was one of those big guys that we loved at a senior day. Big weaknesses though. 2022 and 2023, he was ridiculed with injuries, especially his left knee is very suspect. It's going to be big things that NFL look at. Run and pass blocking is weak, especially with his use of hands. And production was kind of limited. It was limited in college. It only really came from this past season. It was an amazing 2024 season for Arroyo and an amazing draft process, but 2022 and 2023 basically did not show up on the scorecard. And he definitely needs more functional strength. I would have him as a 3rd to 4th rounder. There's a lot of team fits for him. Mock drafts, about over 60% have him going to the Colts.
Yeah, and the thing that scares me is he's similar size, strength, physical ability as guys like we mentioned, Gunnar Helm and Jason Taylor's son, Mason Taylor.
Yeah.
It gets me mixed up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Jason and Mason, they're one letter apart. But the thing that scares me is he totaled 11 receptions in his first 3 years of college and then only 35 last year.
Yes.
So he's got probably as a better prospect overall than those first two, but he doesn't have the best ability, which is availability, which would scare me if I'm any GM in the league.
Yes.
But he's got all the intangibles to be a
does.
good tight end. But
But
it's just we
you
haven't seen
can
it.
never guarantee
Never.
out on the field, even for the best of the world. So it would be really scary to take a shot on him when there's a guy like Helm or Taylor available still in the draft.
Yeah.
So that was 6 through 4 for tight ends: Gunnar Helm, Elijah Arroyo, and Mason Taylor. We'll go through 3 through 1 now. We're started at 3 with Harold Fannin.
Harold Fannin, oh my goodness. Junior from
Dog.
Bowling Green, 6'3", 241 from Canton, Ohio, perhaps where he might end up one day. That's way too presumptuous.
Wow.
He moves insanely well for his frame. 6'3", 241. He doesn't seem that big on the field just because of how well he moves. He's one of the best pure athletes, in my opinion, in this draft. Second to one of the players we'll talk about in a second. And his yards after catch, is some of the best in the whole draft, if not the best. He just put the ball in his hands. He's going to go to work. So when he says, brother, you got to block.
Yes.
He's not a blocker.
Yes.
And I understand in this day and age with tight ends, you don't have to block as much, but it would prefer that you can block a little well. Yeah. He struggles against press defensive backs when he gets off the line, and so I think he needs to release better. I think he's 100% either a late first or an early second. Once teams start getting their second pick in the draft, they're going to want a premier tight end in Harold Fannin. Some team fits, the Broncos, they need a tight end. They might not need more, especially with the Evan Ingram signing, but I can still see it happening.
Yes.
Teams I really like him to are the LA Chargers and the LA Rams. That is a Jim Harbaugh guy. And the Rams, I think they're a McVay and Harbaugh guy. He's probably going to end up in LA for my money.
Yes, and I think the one thing I have with I'm going to talk about the tight end position in general now in the NFL. We are steering away from the true block catch guys.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
It is more of an
100 billion
H back. We play a little bit of hand
a
in the
Y more
dirt.
than that.
Exactly, a Y, more H back, Y type beat. Not where you can get out there. You don't really have to block. I don't know, but Harold Fann's an absolute dog, and I see Chargers as well. All those teams, there's a bunch of teams that need tight ends. They're just going to throw darts at a dartboard.
Yeah, and you think about it, like I said, there's the NFL is shifting more towards a receiver type tight end, but there's still going to be instances in which you need to block for your team.
Yes.
You're going to be put in the C gap, the D gap, even if you're lining up in certain packages, and especially in the Jim Harbaugh offense, you're going to have to figure out how to block. You're an amazing receiver, you're an amazing route runner, but if you can't block on the line, head-to-head against a defensive end, we don't want you out on the field. So that's something he's going to have to work on, because other than that, he's an absolute gem of a prospect, in my opinion.
Yes.
Now we'll go to number 2, Colston Loveland, who was expected to be the top tight end coming into this year. Tyler Warren had a big breakout year, and he kind of slowed down in 2024.
Yeah, his big issue is, and I'll big off that, the reason he fell down was because of his drops. He drops the ball more than anyone in this draft. He scares me. He is big. He's athletic. He's great with route running, has great speed. Issues, he drops the ball way too much. And blocking the run game's terrible. And like all the other prospects we talked about, he needs to put on some muscle. So I don't know. If I'm a team, I don't really like this guy. He kind of scares me. He's like, scary. There's other tight ends I would take lower on, whether it's
Boom
Mason
bust
Taylor.
guy.
Boom or bust guy. Love that from Jack. Boom or bust guy. I have him as a late first, kind of same as Fannin. It's gonna be when one of those two goes off the board, the other will immediately. So late first, early second. I have teams like I was thinking Chargers for Loveland because of the Michigan connection.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly. But I think he just needs to put on more weight. I just don't know. But I had the Chargers as well with Loveland.
I could see the Chargers using their first round pick on somebody else and trading back up into the second, early in the second
to get one of these.
I don't think
one of these two. One of the two. Fannin or you think Fannin goes before Loveland?
I think in the draft,
that.
but do you think Jim Harbaugh's going to pass up on his boy? He recruited him. He was on his 2022 and 2023 Michigan teams. He was an integral part of those offenses with J.J. McCarthy. I think it's going to be hard for Jim Harbaugh to fall in love more with Fannin than he falls in love with Colston Loveland. And so that's why I think they'll probably trade up back into that second round to get Colston
I think it's just going to be once one goes off, the next is going to go off. Because the guy we're about to talk to in the number one spot, he's going to go earlier. 100%. But these two, it's going to be 1-2 right away, and then they'll wait later on in the draft for somebody else. Jack, give us who our number one prospect is.
Yeah, it's Tyler Warren from Penn State. Certified top 10 pick in Maya as a senior, 6'6", 256. He has insane football IQ. He was a former QB, 4-year starter in high school. Huge catch radius and ball tracking skills. And his best thing is that he easily finds soft spots in zone. And we know who does that best in the NFL. That's Kelsey.
Absolutely.
Finding those soft spots.
I don't know about now.
But in his prime.
Yes.
Has great burst and acceleration after catch and is a great pass blocker. Now, his run game, it definitely could be refined. It's not horrible, but it could be better. And then his route running is a little suspect to me. Not really his route running, but it's a structured route running. He gets hurt by it. He'll get bullied off of his routes sometimes by linebackers. And in some of his routes, when he isn't the main target, he'll go off it. He'll half try it. But I still have him as a top 10 pick. Mock draft, there's like this website where you could see where everybody's mock drafting him to. Over 70% to the Jets. I've kind of talked myself into it where it feels like Jets don't have a tight end right now. They lost Tyler Conklin this offseason. At number 7, it feels correct.
Well, if you were to have Tyler Conklin still on that roster, you take Tyler Warren. But I think the thing with Tyler Warren is you look at the numbers, 104 receptions, 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. That jumps off the page. But Tyler Warren plays backyard football. That's what he does. Yes. He plays center. We saw him play center against USC. He plays running back. He plays H. He plays F. He plays Y. Hell, he can go out in the X if he wants. So I think he is easily the best athlete in this class, and I think he's the most diverse in this class as far as where he can play in the offense. He could probably throw it well, too. I know we saw him throw a couple times. He can do whatever he wants in an offense. It's just like you said. The structure is what's difficult from him that you're going to have to refine, and then obviously the blocking part, too.
And I think one of the things, Tyler Warren is one of the best tight end prospects to come out of the NFL. Out of college in the last couple of years. Yes, we put Brock Bowers,
Tyler Warren, and then who?
Tyler Warren, and then it's a big drop off. That's what I'm saying.
But like he was a prospect.
Yes, he was a prospect. He has not played. No, that's what I'm saying. Is prospect wise, those are your 3 guys the last few years have been like, hey, stand out. One bust. One, we look at him through 1 year and we're like, we love it.
He's next up.
This is the first one of, hey, because there was always red flags with Pitts.
Yeah.
Warren, we look at Warren and we're like, okay, this guy can be an absolute dog where he goes. He just needs to find the right landing spot.
And you brought up, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. Brock Bowers. You brought him up, and he's similar to me in Colston Loveland.
Yes.
Right? Brock Bowers came in, and everybody knew who the big dog on campus was.
Yes.
Colston Loveland was the same way in 2022. 2023 was a regression, and 2024 was a big regression.
Yep.
Whereas Tyler Warren kind of was under the radar, 10 receptions 2022, 34 receptions 2023, and then boom, 104, 1,200 yards.
Yes.
So they're kind of the opposite, but like you said, off the charts everywhere else.
Yes.
Just absolute amazing prospect.
Complete.
Yeah, tight ends in the draft are very weird because the two usual best in the past 10 years, Kittle, Kelsey, they were day 3 picks.
Yes.
So people get scared with Eric Ebron, if you remember, like 6-7
dog,
years ago.
Eric Ebron, dog.
Was a top 10, he was a top 10 pick, and he kind of turned out as a bust.
Stop that. Eric Ebron is a dog.
That's a bust.
No, Ebron was a dog.
So people get scared by these tight ends.
We got to forget about
fantasy winner in 2018.
Exactly. He was a dog on my fantasy team. Ebron, absolute dog. Hey, Colts, Lions, all the teams he played on, absolute dog.
Top 6 for our tight ends: Gunnar Helm, Elijah Arroyo, Mason Taylor, Harold Fannin, Colston Loveland. Rounding out our number 1 is Tyler Warren. Now we're going to go through running backs 9 through 7. We're going to go quickly through these ones since we don't have much time. 9 through 7. Start at number 9, R.J. Harvey.
R.J. Harvey. You guys did not have R.J. Harvey on this list.
We did not.
Didn't.
I put it on there myself. I had the 9.
eye test, brother. We saw him IRL.
Oh, yeah. IRL. Shiftiest player in the draft. One of the hardest one-on-one tacklers you see on tape. he has great college tape. He's a seasoned veteran. He's consistent. You want to know what the issues are? Speed, his breakaway speed, kind of tough. His age. As a prospect, he's on the older side because of all his years in college. But that's what makes him a seasoned vet. And he's really bad in pass pro. Really, really bad in pass pro. But I have him as one of my gems of the draft. I have him as more of an Eckler comp. I love what he does. He's a great player. You can kind of get it out the backfield. He's shifty. He can move. He sees grab, has great vision. That's where I have him with RJ Harvey. I have him going, I'm thinking like fourth round, kind of like a fourth round guy. There's so many good running backs that we're about to talk about. I have him as a fourth round guy that can potentially be a starter or a second down back guy.
And fourth round is not to discredit him because
not at all.
This class is absolutely stacked. With running.
There might be 10 running backs in the 4th and 5th round.
Yes,
at least.
yes,
they could
they could all be starters.
RB2,
exactly.
Not RB1.
RB1. And I have at least 8 or 9 that I say you can be a starter on an NFL team.
And one of the things that I noticed about RJ Harvey, like I said, we all saw him play ASU UCF. We saw him in person. He is physically imposing. I don't care what the stat sheet says. I don't care what he weighs in at. He looks like a really big guy, and he was the toughest guy to tackle out there on the field, outside of a guy we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
So when I saw him, he's a really strong runner, and he's a very powerful runner. And like you said, the speed, everything else, but he's so agile. Everything about him, like you said, fourth rounder, he could go and take a starting spot in the NFL.
Yes,
no doubt.
Correct.
And now we're going to skip up to 7 ahead. Caleb Johnson from Iowa for Will.
Caleb Johnson, the junior out of Iowa, 6'1", 224 from Hamilton, Ohio. My biggest strength with him is he was a Big Ten running back. And he played Big Ten football. If you're Iowa, you already know. The joke with Iowa is they don't know how to pass the football. It's 3 runs and a punt. And he had an absolute workload that I think will translate well to the NFL. I think he's a really patient runner, and he always keeps his feet moving, which I really appreciate. Don't ever get flat-footed on a football field.
Yes.
He's more of a downhill bruiser, in my opinion, and he's got some underrated hands for his archetype. Some of his weaknesses are he doesn't accelerate super quickly when he gets out into the clear. I don't think he has great breakaway speed. He's also not super agile either. Like I said, he's a bruiser, so he's going to run through you, not necessarily around you. And he's slow in pass pro. It's something you have to weigh if you're a running back. If you want somebody like a Caleb Johnson, his draft grade, there's some people that have him in the first, like RB3. I don't know. I think he's more of like a second round.
Scary. That's scary, yes.
I think he's a day 2. I think he might fall a little bit depending on what we see, kind of how GMs feel about him later into the summer. Some team fits, not into the summer, into the draft process. Obviously, the draft is coming up very soon. Some team fits. Teams that need a running back, Cowboys, Chargers, Chiefs, I think it'd be really sneaky putting him with Pacheco. I think he'll still be there next year. So he's a guy that's a little scary, but has the physical ability to be one of the better ones out of this class.
Yeah, and I think the thing is he could fall because of how many there are, so teams will wait to pick him up. And you can't really, and on my eyes, you can't really mock any of these guys to anywhere because there's so many different teams that can use it. And, you're just kind of throwing a dart. What 30 team needs a running back? What out of 30 teams need a running back? Because you can always improve your running back position at some point. Because you can't just have one guy be your cowbell nowadays in the NFL anymore.
Over 2/3 of the league will take a running back in this draft in the first 4 rounds.
Yes, correct.
Easily.
We'll backtrack to number 8, Jordan James. I picked him because I loved watching him at Oregon. Junior, 5'10", 205.
Okay.
Coming in for Bucky Irving after last year, him going to the draft. Premier level patience behind the line of scrimmage. That's one thing I love in a running back. Doesn't overuse it as well. Doesn't turn into a weakness. 31 career red zone touchdowns on limited snaps. Quick accelerator. And has the gift of kind of just turning so many negative plays where it looks like he's going to get down behind the line of scrimmage and turns them into positive ones. Now, weaknesses. He's small, not a great pass protector, lacks good contact balance, okay speed, but not great, and was behind the Oregon offensive line, which is kind of weird to say because Bucky Irving came out of this draft and was maybe the best running back from last year, but it's hard to tell how much he benefited from that Oregon offensive line. I'm not going to give him any team fits because, like we said, it's going to be weird, and I am as a 4th rounder.
Yeah, and the thing I like about him is because of his size, you don't probably see him as maybe as good of a prospect as he is, but he started all 14 games. He had over 1,200 rushing yards on 233 carries, 5.4 per carry. And like you said, he had big shoes to fill. My goodness, with the Oregon Ducks after Bucky Irving left, and he filled them really, really well. He was second team All Big Ten Conference, so it's the size is going to scare a lot of teams. And like you said, this running back class after the first 3 or 4, who knows where they're going? Absolutely. But he's definitely going to be. It's very similar to Bucky Irving, where he might start as 3rd in the depth chart, but let him get out in the open field, and you'll see him run. I think he will do a big role for an NFL team. Very, like you said, just like Bucky Irving, he filled his shoes. I think he's a very similar player, and I think he could have a very similar career path in the NFL.
And we're going to reverse kind of the order here. 9 through 7 was R.J. Harvey, Jordan James, and Caleb Johnson. We'll start at 6 with myself. I'll go right back to it with Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State, formerly from Ole Miss, in that big transfer started last year. Extremely difficult to bring down with force, missed tackles, power, and elusiveness. Burst to get easily through initial layers of defense, and a master-level contact balance, and really a good pass catcher, making him a threat on third downs. NFL teams love that when they have a guy who can be a threat on third down. And weaknesses, though, he's very indecisive as a runner, doesn't have top-end speed, tight in the hips when making cuts, and production fell when playing good competition.
Yeah.
When he entered the Big Ten, averaged under 4.0 yards per carry in 5 Big Ten matchups. And we know how Big Ten defenses are. If you can't show up against Big Ten defenses, that's going to be a big red flag going into this draft. Now he has a lot of intangibles, a lot of great skills for him. Late second rounder, I like him. Cowboys, I could see him stay. They have a late second round pick, or I could see him moving up, maybe moving back to early third for that.
Yeah, Quinshon, he's interesting to me. You think about it, at Ole Miss, 2022, 2023, 274 attempts and 271 respectively. Absolute workhorse. He gets to Ohio State, and like you mentioned, the production kind of dropped off in the Big Ten play, and part of it is your split back with TreVeyon Henderson, who we'll get to. But then you think about it is the hype around TreVeyon Henderson. First off, once he left Ole Miss, it was like, wow. And then you go to Ohio State, and it's like double wow. And then this is a real thing. He had the greatest spin move in college football 25, and that made him insanely hyped. I just want you guys to understand that. As much as silly as that is, there was a ton of hype around him, and I don't think he performed as well as some might have projected him to.
Nah.
But I think he'll definitely end up, like you said, I think Cowboys is a really good spot for him. They take him a little later, get some better pieces before a running back, and Judkins goes to Dallas.
So number 6, Quinshon Judkins. Now number 5 with Jason Dylan Sampson, big guy from Tennessee.
I love Dylan Sampson. I loved him watching him when they played in the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
I've loved him all year. He doesn't fumble the ball, and he's great out the backfield. That's simple. He's reliable, has great football vision, also has great IQ. Some of his issues, he doesn't really have the, like a lot of these prospects, doesn't really have the years under his belt. I'll put it that way. He had one great year. It pops out on tape. That's really it. He's undersized. And like I said previously with R.J. Harvey, he's not great in pass pro. So, I don't know. He kind of scares me. But he gives me shades of Jahmyr Gibbs. I see shades of Jahmyr Gibbs in him.
Okay.
I don't know. He hasn't had those big. He has the speed. He has the shiftiness. He has the ability of Jahmyr Gibbs. Just Jahmyr Gibbs was of a better scale, but I see shades of it, and he could develop into a great back.
I think the thing that scares me is he's listed at 5'8", so they're. And then 200 pounds, I'm not going to be able to trust him in pass pro.
Yes.
I don't care what the tape says. Facing Nick Bosa compared to some random SEC defensive lineman, that's not to discredit the SEC.
Oh, yeah.
But just saying, like, that is a different world of pass pro that I think he's really going to have to get used to at the next level.
Yeah.
Number 5, Dylan Sampson. Now I feel like the next guy we're going to have a lot to talk about. I wanted with all my heart to put him in the top 3.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the most fun maybe watching a player in college football history for us.
Yeah.
But we wanted to put him in the top 3, but it was so tough.
No, he is. In my eyes, he's top 3. I don't care what they say. Scatterboo, 916
tough.
legend, real into high school, stand up. You already know.
Good.
Yeah, from SAC.
Just spoil our intro there. Cameron Scatterboo out of the glorious Arizona State University. Like Jack mentioned, the greatest player we've had to be able to follow. He's not the greatest player we've ever seen, but just to follow throughout a season, to watch all of his games, absolutely unreal. Senior, 5'9.5", he's listed at 219 out of, like Teeter said, Rio Linda, California. He's got grit and motor like I've never seen. Just going to be honest with you, he's got some of the best grit and motor I've ever seen. He's a pinball out there. He's not a bowling ball because of his size, but he's a pinball out there. He's got some sneaky speed and some sneaky good vision behind the line, too. You think of him as a bruiser, but he's actually really good at deciding what holes to take and then bruising after that. Some of his weaknesses is, obviously, he's on the shorter side. He takes 1,000 big hits per game, which in the NFL is going to amount to something. We saw him using his head constantly, and he shakes his head and everything else. Eventually, that's got to add up. I know it didn't last year, but it's going to have to. And he kind of runs at one speed to me. He's at 100% at all times, which is fine. But you can't be patient and be fast at the exact same time. He's got to learn how to be a little more decisive while also slowing down. First 2 rounds for sure. I don't want to call him a first rounder, but I'm also not calling him a third rounder by any means. Team fits are the Steelers, the Chargers, the Broncos. Gritty teams need a gritty guy. Cameron Scadwell is your guy.
One quickly, backstory behind him. He brought a small school in Rio Linda their first ever state championship. Rio Linda football has not been anywhere touched playoffs for years. He comes on that team, carries that team. He shows he has a story behind it. Wherever he goes, he's going to work his butt off and play because he's done it his whole entire life.
Absolute dog.
And two biggest things that I saw with Scadaboo watching him this season was just how he got extra yards and his dog mentality.
Yeah, absolute dog.
Yeah, we got 2 minutes here. We'll go quick with the top 3. Travion Henderson for me, top-notch acceleration, varies run tempo at elite level, but he was injured a decent amount in 2022 and 2023, especially when he was tasked with the big lead role. When he got it, he kept on getting injured, and he's not much of a threat in the receiving game. I have him as a mid to late second rounder. Team Fitch talked about before, Broncos. Henderson feels really good to the Broncos. Now Omarion Hampton.
Omarion Hampton out of UNC, junior, 6 foot, 220. He's patient, but he's decisive. I really like the way he sits behind the line, waits for something to happen. I think he's got a really good plant and burst after that decision. He takes a lot of shots, but he's always gotten right back up, which I appreciate. He's not super elusive, so he doesn't have a ton of that to work with. He kind of has one skill move, if you think about it in Madden terms. You can press B once, and that's it. I think that's how I see Omarion Hampton, and he's not earth-shatteringly fast, so it can be a little trouble. Breakaway speed. I got him as a late first, early second by far. If he makes it to the second, it'll be really early. Team Fitz, give me the Broncos. They need a running back, and I think the next best guy on the board before we talk about this next guy is going to be Omarion Hampton, and I think that's who they're going to look at when they time the draft.
And the next guy doesn't need many words. Everybody knows him, Jason.
Ashton Genty. I have it written on my screen right now. Dog. Dog. I have him as a dog. So issues are small. He's one of the best running back draft prospects in the last decade.
Yeah.
Him, Saquon, you throw a few others in there, but
Derrick
they're exactly. But like he's up there. He's up there. He runs a little too high for my liking. I'm gonna keep it straight up. I look at some of the film with him.
Yeah, a little bit.
Runs a little high, and pass pro scares me a lot. But he is a top 10 pick, guaranteed, absolute dog. Give him to the Dallas Cowboys and see what happens, baby. Let's go.
No, don't give him to the
That'll
Cowboys.
do it for this episode of Roll the Tape for running backs and tight ends. One more night to sleep until we are in the draft month, boys.
Oh
my goodness.
Finally.
Let's do it. But so for Will Anderson, Jason Teeter, and myself, Jack Kemler, we will see you next week. We're talking about team needs.
See y'all.
Peace.